Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Blend, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Liam DeBoer, and today we're going to quickly go over three different stories. First, violent crime soaring 63% in Ottawa, with it being no mystery as to why. Canada's hunger crisis, with food bank use in Toronto soaring 340% as cost of living spirals, as well as Canadian healthcare ranking third in spending, but 27th in doctors and dead last in wait times when compared to other advanced nations. All right, let's get started. So, first off, we've got violent crime soaring 63% in Ottawa, and it being no mystery as to why. So, Ottawa's new police data confirms what many Canadians have felt for years. Our cities are getting more dangerous, and the people in charge have no intention of fixing it. Between 2015 and 2024, total criminal offenses in Ottawa rose by 63%. Violent crime climbed 58% and property crime by 64%. Shoplifting has surged by 384%. These aren't random fluctuations, they're a symptom of a deeply broken system. Now, how did we get here? Well, prioritizing identity politics over law and order. Frederick Bastiat was a French statesman who made a fantastic essay back in the 1700s, I believe, late 1700s, called The Law. And he aptly pointed this out, that as soon as you start prioritizing group dynamics, identity politics within justice, then the justice system ceases to be a what would you say, objective system where everybody has equality under the law, that everybody is subjected to the same rules and faces the same consequences for breaking them, but instead it becomes a weapon. And so certain groups end up weaponizing the justice system against other groups. And that's exactly what we've got now. Whether it's in our tax codes, you can see the Canadian government keeps track of how the tax system is benefiting marginalized groups compared to white people, in which is a weird marker, because even if you look at the top earners in Canada, it's not white people. So even if they were trying to close the gap between different demographics in Canada, then they wouldn't be using white people as the bar. They would be actually looking at mostly Asians, Chinese people, Koreans typically end up at the highest level of earners anyways. Back to the crime aspect, this is where you see things like Bill C-75 and Bill C-5 under the Liberal government just wrecking complete mayhem through Canada. Those were the laws that weakened bail reforms so that people can get back out on the streets a day after they commit heinous violent acts. And then there was also the sentencing reform, which repealed mandatory minimums. And there's actually something, too, that the Canadian legal system uses, which is Gladue factors. And this is where the judges are prescribed that they have to take into account the defendant's ancestral heritage. So this is where you see Indigenous people getting off. Like, there was like literal murders and stuff where all of a sudden the sentencing is cut down significantly because they say that, well, this person is suffering from ancestral trauma. It's no surprise as to how we got here with crime soaring when you are implementing policies like this. And there's actually a very well documented reality here as well, which show that three-strike policies would end up rooting out a massive amount of crime. So even if you implemented a 5-strike rule, it would reduce crime by 40%. And if you put in a 2 violent convictions rule for essentially 2 strikes and you're out, you would reduce crime by 2/3. So this is where those 3-strike policies came from. This is, quoting Swedish data, which if you go to our newsletter, The Daily Blend, you can get access to, is completely free. But so this is a choice, and the crime is just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse until we have the political will to do something about it. The next story we've got here is Canada's hunger crisis, with food banks use in Toronto soaring 340% as cost of living spirals. So over 4.1 million food bank visits happened in Toronto in a single year, a staggering record that exposes how far the country has fallen under its current leadership. Just 5 years ago, the number was below 1 million. That's a 340% increase in the amount of people using food banks since 2019, which is just ridiculous. Now, people want to claim this on outside factors, or, when the cost of living first started skyrocketing, it was Putin's invasion of Ukraine, right? But this is the direct result of Canada's monetary policy, especially throughout the pandemic, because we don't understand how money works, the average person. And so when you think about how government spending works, most people imagine that the government takes our taxes, puts that into a pool, and then disperses it into different quote-unquote investments or sectors or bureaucracies that they deem is important. But that's not how it works at all. Actually, the government spending, they print the money. So they send more money out into the economy. And then what's happening when they tax you is that's them essentially removing that money from the economy. So it's not that they tax you, then they spend. It's they spend and then they tax you. And what ends up happening here is as you have more and more money, that spending flood into the economy, then you actually inflate the prices because you have the same amount of goods being chased by far more amounts of money. The stimulus checks that happened throughout the pandemic and so on. And I mean, this hasn't slowed down at all. We're about to see Carney's budget here in the next week or so, and the deficit is surely going to be massive. Definitely going to, well, I shouldn't say definitely, but it is looking like it is even going to surpass Trudeau's last budget, which was a $70 billion deficit after you take into account the revenue lost and such. But this is where you get to where, okay, they put more money into the economy, they call it an investment, but then what have we seen over this last 5 to 10 years or so is capital is leaving Canada. So they put money into the economy, but there isn't actually enough tax revenue coming in to act as a deflationary pressure on that money. And so this is where cost of living just spirals and spirals and spirals. And so, again, the consequences here are a choice. They are the inevitable outcome of the monetary policy that Ottawa has been using for the last couple years. And so you can expect that these food bank usage numbers are only going to continue to grow if the Liberal government continues with the deficit spending. And everything, this is going to reach across the board with real estate and so on. RBC did a survey about 6 months to a year ago, and 50% of Canadians reported feeling financially paralyzed, which is just ridiculous. And so in terms of the fact of what they've done, they knew either, this is the thing, I can't say for sure they knew that this was going to happen, right? But either they knew this was going to happen and they did it anyways and plunged the country into increasing poverty, or they didn't know that this was going to happen, and that just renders them completely incompetent. But no matter what the scenario is there, now I lean towards the fact that they know what was going to happen, because with inflation, asset prices go up, right? So it's the working class, it's the day-to-day people that rely on paycheck to paycheck to get by that get burned, but it's the asset holders that greatly benefit from this whole scheme. And so this is where you see, I mean, we've got the former head of Brookfield, an investment manager who, has lots of assets. They're an asset manager. And so this money supply would completely skyrocket. And actually, you even go back to the Trudeau era days where a reporter asked him about the economy, and Trudeau said, well, we'll let the bankers worry about the economy. And when Mark Carney is his advisor, and Mark Carney was a central banker, you can kind of put two and two there together, where you can look at it and go, Mark Carney was probably driving Justin Trudeau's monetary policy throughout. At least, well, he came on in, I believe, 2021 as an advisor. So throughout all of those years when this spending went like crazy, and you look at how it's turned out for Brookfield, record profits, right? So it's hard to imagine that they didn't know what was going to happen. But last story for the day that we'll cover here quickly is Canadian healthcare ranking third in spending, but yet coming 27th in doctors and dead last in wait times. So the Fraser Institute just put out a study about, Canada having fewer doctors, hospital beds, MRI machines, and longer wait times than most other countries with universal health care. So what you'll find in here is that, in comparison to our economy, we rank third in overall spending when compared to 31 countries. Well, I guess Canada would be the 31st, so compared to 30 different countries. But yet, when it comes to doctor totals, we rank 27th. When it comes to care beds, we rank 25th out of 30. When it comes to MRI units, we come 27th. When you look at CT scanners, we come 28th. And compared to only 9 of the other universal and advanced healthcare systems in the world, we come dead last in surgical wait times. So this is this is a very fun one. Because you see this as a sense of pride in Canada. Everybody talks about our free healthcare system as if it's not our largest expenditure. So again, when it comes to the taxation aspect, you definitely pay for it. Nothing here is free. And actually, another study that was done a while back showed that when you look at the effective tax rate in Canada, so this balances not just how much people pay into the system, but what they get out of it, then the highest taxed group is people making $30,000 to $60,000 a year, which is who the government says that all of these policies and programs are for, is for the struggling middle class and the people in poverty, right? But you can look at that and go, well, how does this make sense? Because again, they're getting taxed at a solid rate, which for the average Canadian family is 43% for the in taxation. And then what they end up getting out of it is a broken healthcare system, a broken justice system, and massive cost of living. So I think at this point you can objectively say that Canada is broken, or at the very least is splitting at the seams. We've essentially become a nation that is the equivalent to an obese man who is looking in the mirror but telling himself that he's still beautiful at any size. And I say man, but I don't know many obese men that are doing that. Either way, this is, we can either admit to ourselves that we have become the equivalent of obesity at a national level, and we can look in the mirror and realize that we have been deteriorating in terms of economic health and also even just social health. Or we can continue deluding ourselves and tell ourselves that everything is fine, and then just continue on with the same habits of overspending, terrible justice policies, and bloated bureaucracies within the healthcare sector. And, these numbers will just continue to get worse. And I think this is actually something to keep in mind here as well, is that the world is in trajectories, is not very often linear. It's exponential in the sense where either, you deteriorate. Somebody asks, how do you go bankrupt? It's like, well, you go bankrupt slowly and then all at once. It's like you pile up that debt and debt and debt until eventually the collectors come. And then when that happens, you've got nothing. And so that's what we're doing on a national level. Now, I think that you can fix this 100%. If you cause a problem, then that means there is a solution to the problem. I don't think that these things are just natural occurrences that were inevitable. Again, they are the consequence of choices that the government of Canada has made. And so therefore we can make choices. But just like when you become extremely unhealthy, and I've been unhealthy myself before, is that you do have to realize that change. There's no single policy. There's no one day go to the gym, or there's no 6-week ab program that actually works. It's that you need to understand that you can no longer make the choices that got you there, which is the overspending and the identity politics. And then you can start to slowly do it. But that weight has got to come off the same way it went on, which is slowly, 1 pound at a time. And unfortunately, it's actually, destruction is quicker than construction, right? It's much easier to tear down a house than it is to build one, or at least much faster. And so, it's been 10 years of destruction that we've been living through. And so, yeah, it'll probably take 15, 20, 30 years to bring back Canada to any place that looks like prosperity, but we need the political will to do that. And so until the average Canadian is willing to look themselves, or at least this nation, in the reflection in that mirror and take an accurate assessment, then there's no even use of me getting into those solutions in the medium term, because people need to be hungry for those solutions before it makes sense to start selling them. If you want to dive deeper into these stories, head over to our website and Substack, where you can get them for free. That's blendrnews.com, BLENDR news.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, which goes out 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And there's a bunch of other stories in here as well. We cover, the new Israeli military strikes on Gaza, Elon Musk launching the AI-powered Grokpedia to rival the Wikipedia, a bunch of other little stories as well. But pretty proud of the newsletter that we put together on a daily basis here, and we are very consistent with it. So head over there to sign up for free, and hope you enjoyed this video and quick little breakdown. We'll see you next time.